Welcome, and we're starting a new Parsha, of course, and this is the Parsha of vaYishlach, and it's about uh, Jacob is on his way from Lavan, planning to return to the land of Canaan, to his family's home, and this is where he hears that Esau is coming with a whole bunch of men to greet him. And of course, he is very worried. We're in the middle of that story. We finished last year about the gift that he sends to Esau, and this is where we're going to go right now. Baruch.
So
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what verse?
I'll get to it in a second. I'll tell you in a
Okay.
second, okay? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
So here we are, and it is chapter 32 of Genesis, and we're on verse 23. Verse 23. So basically, he said this previous verse says that he sent the gift before him, and we had this thing al panav, and Rashi had some interesting things to say about al panav, what that was coming to add. It's again one of those little phrases that doesn't seem necessary. So if the Torah puts it in, the argument is there must be a special reason for it. And one of the explanations, the very last explanation that Rashi gave, was that it represents how he was angry, that Jacob himself was angry that he had to do this. And then it says, V'hulan balayla hu b'machaneh. And he spent that night in the camp. Here we go. Vayakum balayla hu, he got up at that night, Vayikach et shtei nashav, and he took his two wives, ve'et shtei shivchotav, and his two handmaidens, that would have been Bila and Silpa, ve'et achad asar yiladav, and his 11 children, vaya'avor et ma'avar Yabok, and he crossed over the wadi of Yabok. A ma'avar would be a place where you could get over this stream. Right, a ford, that's what I could call it. And here we are on the, excuse me, the Rashi here. Ve'et achadasar yeladav, his 11 children. Dina hechan haita, this is in Bereshit Rabbah. He says, wait a second, wasn't Dina one of his children? How come only 11? It doesn't mention 11.
Benjamin wasn't born yet.
Correct, but Dina was born. That makes 11. That makes 12 children. She was his child. So it's the Bereshit Rabbah asks a question: where was Dina? And it says, Natna bateva. He put her in a box, v'na'al b'faneha, and he sealed it up, or he locked it literally in her presence, or in her face. So she was locked inside this box, and why? Shelo yiten ba Esav einav, so that Esau shouldn't cast his eyes upon her. Ulachach ne'enash Yaakov. This is so interesting right here, this Bereshit Rabbah comment that Rashi's sharing. And this was the reason why Jacob was punished. Shemina'a me'echav, because he prevented her, that is Dina, from his brother, meaning that his brother could have married Dina. It would have been perfectly fine for him to marry his niece, and he prevented that from happening. Jacob prevented that from happening. Shema tachzirenu lamutav, because lest she bring him back to be a better person for good. V'naflad b'yad Shechem, and this was the reason she fell into the hands of Shechem. That's the story that gets mentioned in this particular parsha. I looked at the Torah Tamima on this, and there's something. So he says, wait a second. He says, first of all, why wouldn't he be worried that Esau would turn her to be wicked? And I think his answer on that basically is that he was confident that Dina was sufficiently raised in good ways that would not have happened, right? And then he mentions something. He says, wait a second, why would Jacob not want Dinah to marry Esau so that she would improve his character? That doesn't seem to make sense. Wouldn't he be happy? And the answer is that underneath it, he peels us away. This is the Torah Tamima, to explain that it shows how much Jacob hated Esau. And that's one reason why he would have been punished. And while that isn't obvious in this Rashi, and I can tell you that until I happened to read this, I was not aware of this element and how poignant the Torah Tamima's words are. Can you hear a lot of ambient sound?
Yeah,
Let me mute a second, and I'm going.
no, it's fine.
Oh, wow, that's intense, huh?
Yeah. I just thought they just didn't count the girls. Because there's
Yeah,
got to be more.
that would have been a simpler, but it really hits home because I mean they were
No, he
twins.
really couldn't. He hated them.
They were- It's like there has to be a good twin and an evil twin, and I'll be damned if I'm going to be the evil twin. So it's got to be.
It's like he didn't even want to be associated with him, even if he married him off to one of his sons or married her off to one of his sons or something. It's like he didn't even want to be associated with that family.
Right.
Yeah.
He's evil and he's got to stay evil. I need him to stay evil. That's
Right.
Because if he's not the evil twin, then maybe I'm not the good twin.
I hope this discussion is getting recorded because I think it's such a great discussion. And yeah, I mean, isn't this is such a great Torah Tamima when I came across it, because it totally all the pieces started to fit better right now. But there's another takeaway that I have, and that is, sometimes you hear how, you hear in Jewish, in traditional conversation, how much we hate our enemies, and, Yamach Shmo, may his name be blotted out, etc. And it's true, with Amalek, that is something we're supposed to do. But on the other hand, they're people that we sort of related to, and this was family. Not to say that Amalek isn't also a distant relation. He's actually a descendant of Esau. But I think the fact that the Bereshit Rabbah is saying that Jacob got punished for this, I think has to be in some sense for the fact that he hated Esau so much. And that is not something we want to encourage. And I think for me, that was a great takeaway from this little piece.
Especially with Thanksgiving coming in, who ends up sitting at our tables?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I suppose it depends on how good a cook we are, right? And in that case, maybe having them is a punishment. Who knows? So, Yabok. So he says Shem Hanahar. It's the name of the river, of the stream, Yabok. So let's go on to the next verse, and then there's something about this name Yabok that I want to share with you. Incidentally, there is a book about immortality that is called Ma'avar Yabok, and it understands this crossing the Yabok as being this describes what we do, what happens when we die, and the afterlife, and it's called Ma'avar Yabok. It's a classic work. I've never read the book. I've only seen it referenced. Going on. Vayikachem.
Wait,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. Yeah,
Well,
sure.
I don't, I don't know, Christian spirituals crossing the Jordan
Yes.
is going to heaven.
Interesting.
What's
Right.
the,
Well, crossing a river, the river is a barrier. Death is a barrier, and that could be the symbolism of crossing rivers. That there's a literary symbolism.
Shallow. That river was shallow, very shallow. You can cross it.
Yes, that's true. It's true, but still, even when you ford a stream, you're still having to watch yourself, and the river and rivers are barriers, regardless.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
it literally, it probably could be translated as crossing,
Was
right?
that
It's a
stream,
Yabok
was
crossing, although none of the rivers in Israel, other than the Jordan, are particularly significant. They're not like
oh,
the mighty Mississippi. Nothing like him.
was-
Yeah.
oh. What side was that stream on? Was it on the Israel side or on the Jordan
Well, I
side?
guess it divided the two, right? I think that's part of the idea, is that it may have marked a boundary of some kind.
Uh-huh.
Let me go on. Vayikachem, he took them. Vayavirem et hanachal. He took them over. He transported them over the river. Right? It's a causative, meaning sort of he made them cross the river. He helped them cross the river. Vaya'aver et asher lo, and he also transported over, transferred, might be a good translation, that which was his. In other words, the rest of his possessions, and Rashi will go into that again. All right, so we're talking about this process by which Jacob is taking what he has and transporting it across the river.
Does that include the box that he has his daughter in?
We would have to assume that, I believe, because we'll
I was
see.
kind of
We'll
wondering
see.
what
Yes.
he did with it. Yeah.
Defeats
So,
the purpose
although,
otherwise.
yeah, I mean, the Torah Tamima is on the next verse. This Torah Tamima that I starred, which had some of this commentary that I mentioned. All right, so that's where it does. So he talks about Dina there.
okay.
So
Keep going.
possibly she was with him at that point. I'm not sure. Vayivater Yaakov levado. Jacob remained alone. Vaye'avek ish imo, and a man wrestled with him. Ad alot hashachar, until the break of day, until daybreak. The point that I want to make here is that the word Yabok, right? This river, Yabok, the Yud and the Aleph are interchangeable. They're interchangeable letters. And so I think it's significant that it's called Ma'avar Yabok, and we've got Ye'avek. We have this verb, avek, to wrestle with him. So I think there's a definite connection, even though Rashi doesn't mention it. It may be in one of the other commentaries, but I realized it as I was preparing for this class. Here we go. This is also, yeah, go
Does
ahead.
it matter that it's kind of also an like similar letters to Yaakov?
I don't. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, transposed. The only difficulty I would have is that the ayin, you see, I'm pointing to it now, in Yaakov is a significant letter. Okay, I mean, that is part of the root. And the ayin, even though it's a guttural, is a significant guttural as opposed to aleph. So there are four letters that are sort of weak letters in the sense that they aren't foundational and they can be interchanged. And there's a mnemonic ehevi. So aleph, hey, vav, yud. Those are those four letters, and they are interchangeable depending on the construction of the word at the time. So I would say that less significant than avok, avak and yavak. That would be, so this ayin is what would tend to move you away from that possible connection. But I still think it's good that, I think it's wonderful that you're looking and trying to see these connections. So Vayivater Yaakov, Jacob remained. This is the Midrash, right? This is in the Talmud, Chulin Talmud, and these are relatively famous or well-known interpretations. Shachach pachim ktanim. He forgot small jars, b'chazar alehem, and he went back to get them. So, and again, this is this Torah Tamima here where he talks about this. Maybe this is worth going into this right now, and I can do that. We don't have tons of time, but I will try. So it says, Vayivater Yaakov levado. And he gives, what's lovely about the Torah Tamima is he fills in some of the details as far as the origin of this particular comment. Amar Rabbi Elazar. So we know that the author of this comment is Rabbi Elazar. Shenishtayer al pachin ktanim, that he remained regarding these small jars. Mikan, and he draws from this, Mikan la tzadikim, and from this we are able to infer that with regards to righteous people, this is going to blow you, I think, a little away. Shechaviv alehem mamonam, that their substance is preferable to them, yoter migufan, more than their own bodies. V'chol kach lama. So that in itself sounds crazy. Why are they more concerned about their material possessions than they are about taking care of themselves, right? And gufam means your body. And here we go. So there's a little bit of an explanation of this. V'chol kach lama, and for what reason? Why to this extent? Lefi she'ein poshtin yedehem begezel. And the reason they do is they don't ever want to, literally it means stretch their hands to rob in robbery, in theft. So because they're very careful about what they have and the fact that it has to be legitimate, they're more careful about what they have around them, their own possessions, than they are about themselves. Let's take a look at this here. Okay, so I love this about Torah T'mima, is he doesn't let these things just drop. He doesn't just accept it for what it's worth. He's going to ask a really question that this begs. And he says it this way, Lo nitba'er tam hadrasha. He says, the reason for this comment, all right, isn't so clear. It's not clear at all. V'yein bepiresh Rashi, and he says, look at the Rashi, right? Where did we get this? It says he was by himself, and we're saying no. You're quoting Rabbi Elazar and saying no. There were these little jugs, right? These insignificant jugs that he went back to get. And the Torah is saying he was by himself, right? In other words, in some ways, the best we could do with that, I think, is to say, well, they were so insignificant that from the Torah's point of view, he was by himself, because these were just tiny, insignificant items that he owned. Vayesh lohosif biur. He says, the Torah T'mima says, it really is, something we need to explain this better. Halashon levado, because when you use the term levado, by himself, mashma gam belo chafatzav, it would mean without his possessions, all by himself, no possessions, nothing else. Ukedichtiv va'yavor et asher lo, and not only that, the verse said, right? The previous verse said he transported everything that he owned. How clear is that, right? So.
Right.
But these are the things that he didn't own.
No, he owned them. These were jars. These were little jugs. They were all part of
But if he owned them, then why would he think that it would be seeming like robbing someone to have them?
No, I don't think that's the way. That's not the way I think Rabbi Elazar is inferring this. He's just saying that even insignificant things are very important to a tzaddik, because when it comes to insignificant things, sometimes people just help themselves because they figure it's so insignificant, you don't have to worry. Nobody's going to really care. And that's why they care, even for tiny, insignificant things. That's the way this drasha is working. But to say that on the basis of this verse, that is that regardless, where do we get that he had these little jugs? Where do they come, especially when it says lavado? So, the imkain lama ze nishar. If it says he took everything that he owned, why did these little jugs, remain? He took everything. Makes a point of it in the previous verse. Al kor chacha shenishar al davar kal. So one has to infer from this, perforce, right? That this is something so insignificant. Shelo he'evir od. That's why he didn't take any more of the stuff. You know yourself. Whenever you move, right after you've moved the really significant things that you have, there's always these little tiny tzatzkalas and things and stuff that goes along with it that you sort of sweep up and throw out, right? That's generally what you would do, but in this case, he was going to take it. Vayitachen, and it appears, desamich lidrosh, that shenishar pachin, okay, that we're relying, I think that's the way to translate it, to interpret it, that he was remaining over these little jugs.
What was in those? What was in those little jugs? What was in there?
They were so small. I don't know. Paper clips. I don't know. But I think this is what he's going to
Was that
say.
important
Okay, I
to
think
him?
well, they were
That's
there.
good.
They were there.
That's
That's the
important
point.
to
They
him.
were important to him. That's the big drush. That was the takeaway of the drush. That even these little paper clips or whatever were still important. Hair clips. I
They
don't
were
know.
supposedly in the box that they put Dina in instead, and
Oh,
took those out and left.
I don't. The box for Dina had to be pretty large.
Well,
I would think.
displaced
I would
the
think
jug.
compared to. Let's see what he says about that at all. Okay, let's just wait and see, and we may have to wait until tomorrow for that. I can see from the time. All right. So no, he says we can rely. Okay, this is what he's trying to say: that we can rely on an interpretation. Shenishar al pachin. Okay, that the reason why he uses this. He mentions pachin, little jugs, the darish levador, that he is going to actually interpret out the Hebrew word levador, kamo lekador. In other words, he's taking the bet and replacing it with a kaf. And a kad is a jug. And so he's taking the written word levador, and this is Rabbi Elazar, right? And he's replacing it with a kaf, bechiluf otiot, in exchanging letters, bachlam. So remember, I mentioned ehevi, right? Those particular letters. There's also these letters bachlam, right? And if you look at them, they're used as prepositional prefixes, and they are also interchangeable. Kenoda, as is understood, uchamo be'omram. So he gives an example. So sometimes it says be'omram, ke'omram. It means the same thing as ke'omram, uchedome, and similar to that. And I'm gonna stop here. This is a good place to stop, and we'll pick this up with God's help tomorrow. And I'm gonna put a little, oops, sorry, let's just get rid of that. Sorry.
This could by any chance explain when people rewrite the Torah, some possible mistakes. So or not, just slips, writing the kaf instead of the bet.
Well, we know that a kaf and a bet look so similar, right? There's just a little schmitchik to the right of the bet.
Correct.
Yeah, it could be, but then a lamed is pretty significant, and the fact that these four letters do represent like me something, from something, le something, to something, because something, like something, something, in something. So yeah.
No, I was just thinking in those two particular words that might have been.
Oh, you think that it was
often done by accident.
Yeah, I think though levador makes a lot more sense in the context of that makes it because that's when he wrestles with the angel, remember? And so the whole drama of it is the fact that he was by himself and had to wrestle with this man. And so I don't think that Baruch Halevi Epstein is trying to suggest that it's a scribal error at all, but just simply. Again, this is a way of taking words of the Torah, and when they say, that every word, and in this case, every letter, that the Torah can be interpreted in like how many ways? There's like, all these ways that the Torah can be interpreted, like a splitting rock. Yes.
Yeah. So are you saying basically that the jugs themselves come from essentially transforming a word, right? So it's not written, but it's because of the fact he's transformed the word based on, the description you've just gone through, and that's how we get to that point. Is that really, is
Say,
that,
just say this one more time. Tell me your line of reasoning one more time,
So-
please.
so you're saying that the jugs, right, or the
Yes.
insignificant jugs
Yes.
appear because of the fact that he's transformed that singular word, right? That's
Oh,
essential.
He's saying it's a support. He says that it's
Okay.
another way of approaching this particular problem. The first, perhaps more, literary way to do it is to say that we're saying he's by himself because we'd consider what we went back for as insignificant.
Right.
And so we can get away with saying that he was by himself. And then he plays with the fact that there might be another reason why Rabbi Elazar is bold enough to say this, and that's
Yeah.
because of the switching of the bet
Right.
and the kaf.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's why did he go back and stay there by himself?
Right,
Why
exactly.
is he there?
Yeah.
Very good point. Very good
Yeah.
point, Golda.
Yeah.
That is a good question, right? Yeah,
Right.
And-
I suspect that also bothered Rabbi Elazar. Go
Sure.
ahead, David.
Yeah, the other question I had was about the wrestling. You didn't really
Yes.
talk about that. Who is he wrestling with?
Okay,
or
we
what-
will answer those questions in the future. I'd rather keep you in suspense.
Okay.
All right.
That's
All right.
fine, but we kind of skipped over that part. Right?
We did.
So-
We did not get to that because we were discussing this here, and in fact, here is where Rashi discusses it.
Okay.
So if you remind me, David, God willing, you'll be there tomorrow, and remind me, and I'll finish up the Rashi, and then we can go back and finish up the Torah Tamima.
I may not be there tomorrow, but I'll watch the recording for sure. Okay.
Okay.
No
All
problem.
right. Good.
I just
Okay.
want to say, I don't think the word levado, I mean, at least in modern Hebrew for sure.
Mhm.
And also I think in biblical Hebrew, I don't think levado excludes objects. It excludes people. That's suspicious.
Yes.
to me. It just
okay.
doesn't make sense to me to say levado means there were no objects with him.
True, but remember in the previous verse, right? It does say he took everything that he had, right?
Then
It says "Vaya'aver et asher lo."
Yeah,
He
that I
transported over everything that he had, and
That I
that's you see what I'm saying.
yeah,
So,
sure.
but
That I agree with, but the other part, levado, I mean, that's
right.
no people with him.
that's true, and I think maybe that's again a reason why Rabbi Elazar takes it the way he does. That could be another
Well,
reason.
when you go on a field trip with kids, you always check the bus
Oh my
after they get
gosh,
off.
you
Maybe
are
he
right.
went back to go check and make sure everything was gone.
I
You
love
know?
it. Let me stop the recording on that. I love that. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful comment. Yes. Okay. Very good.